This is Stay Happily Married number 146, Avoiding Critical Mass.
Welcome to Stay Happily Married.
Happily Married. Happily Married.
Your source for weekly updates on the latest tips and advice to build a happy and healthy marriage.
Today's episode of Stay Happily Married is brought to you by the Rosen Law Firm. For more information, visit us at rosen.com.
I'm Lee Rosen, and I'm your host today. Welcome to the show. We have a guest now who has been with us several times, and she is always terrific, and I'm glad she could be back again today. Her name is Dr. Kristen Wynns. Kristen, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Now, you have a private psychological practice, and if I recall correctly, you have an office in Cary, North Carolina. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And what sort of things do you guys do? What's your area of specialty?
We are a child-adolescent family practice, so our main niche is working with kids and teenagers as well as their parents and couples on all the common issues that kids and teenagers struggle with as well as the common issues that parents and couples face.
Okay, so we're talking about critical mass today, and that sounds like some sort of, explosion. I mean, I watch a lot of, Tom Clancy and John Grisham movies and read all the books, yeah. And so we're right in my zone here of things blowing up. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
That is, and that's actually when the context that many of us hear that term used is in science, referencing more nuclear reactions, the material that's required to sustain the nuclear reaction. But I think it's actually a very helpful way of thinking about arguments between spouses and how, there's a certain point where things are under control and you can still have some hope of having resolution, but when you have that critical mass and sort of have the explosion or the nuclear reaction, so to speak,
right.
There's really no coming back from it, and typically nothing productive is going to come after that.
Yeah, I would not think critical mass happening in your house would ever be a good thing.
It's not pretty. Lower
the cooling rods, something. There would be, I can see it like on 24 on that TV show. They would be doing something to stop that right then.
Exactly.
Okay, so what happens if you're headed toward critical mass in a marriage? This argument, this fight has gone to the red line and is going over the red line. What tends to happen when that point is reached?
Right. So usually you see a lot of high emotion from one or both partners. So usually that's when people would be furious, and oftentimes you'd have yelling and screaming and interrupting and all the poor communication things we try to help couples avoid, blaming, kitchen sinking, bringing up everything they've ever done wrong in the last 10 years. Typically that's when you see those poor communication techniques pop up and just a lot of anger and not really any direction with the discussion anymore.
You're so funny. Poor communication techniques. That's when we're screaming obscenities at one another.
Yes.
And then I love your other one is, what was it? It's kitchen sinking. I have not heard that one before, but I am certainly...
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, that's when you bring in everything, including the kitchen sink. You're bringing up, what they did 10 years ago on your honeymoon and everything else.
I've been kitchen sinked. Yeah, I've gotten the kitchen sink dumped on my head. Yeah, I can... The problem is women keep lists. Men don't do that. We need to start carrying notepads and record all the 10 years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
But, okay, so it really does. I mean, all those things are going on, and it's reaching, I guess it's reaching a point of no return when all of that is happening.
Exactly, and probably any of us who have been married recognize when you've reached that point. You can recognize right away that the temperature's changed, so to speak, that things are very heated, that you're in that point where you really need to stop, but one or both of you is refusing to quit the discussion, and you can just tell that it's kind of clicked over into that other stage of, past the point of no return where it's just ugly and you're not going to get anything accomplished.
So they kind of know that they shouldn't be going there, but they just keep doing it. I mean, I guess they get stuck in some sort of a pattern or whatever where that's the way they behave toward one another. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, I think it becomes a bad habit for sure for some couples, and there's also a certain addictive quality to it. If you think about it, sometimes couples really get hooked on the drama of having a big fight with a big explosion, and in a way that can almost become addictive where it doesn't feel satisfactory until someone's exploded and you're almost pushing the other one to get to that point. So sometimes it can take on that bad habit, or sort of you get hooked on the drama of it.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. For some reason it meets some kind of need for them or whatever. They just really like it after a while, which is just fascinating to me because it's so not what I would want. It just is so contrary. But you're right. I mean, I hear stories all the time of people that are doing this high drama, big, huge fight thing. And it just, gosh, it's stressful to even talk about it,
Right, but it does provide some sort of a release for some people, to be able to have that big blow up and explosion. It sort of gets everything out. And again, even though it's stressful and it's not healthy, in the moment it can feel kind of good for individuals to just let go and have that big blow up.
Well, my inclination in that kind of situation would be, to just kind of walk away. I'd wave the white flag. Okay, I give up. I'm done with this conversation. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of approach, is sort of retreating from this? Is that going to help, or is that going to make things worse?
It can oftentimes very much help, and sometimes couples have the false notion that it's giving up or it is surrendering if you walk away, and they think, no, we need to stick it out and really see this thing through. But as we talked about a while ago, sometimes that's not the right solution for the moment. Things are too heated. So taking a temporary break, and saying, this is too intense right now, we're not getting anywhere, let's take a break and come back to it later. Or if you realize after you've cooled off there's really no point in discussing it later, that it was silly in the first place, sometimes that break can be essential to repairing the relationship or resolving an issue.
Boy, I'm just thinking about these sort of critical mass arguments, and these are these are the things that show up on Lifetime movies where, and the kids are always at the top of the stairs listening as the argument escalates higher and higher and higher. I mean, we can all visualize it even if we're not living with it at the moment.
Yes.
So do you get it in your office? I mean, do people reach critical mass sitting right there in front of you?
It happens sometimes, and obviously that's part of the benefit of being in a therapy session is in those moments, ideally I can jump in there and see them headed towards that critical mass and try to coach them and remind them of, okay, this is the point where you guys seem heated, let's try this, or let's switch gears for a minute, and you can kind of see it reaching that point and try to steer it in a more productive direction. So that's one of the benefits of being in a therapy setting, is to kind of coach couples when they seem to be headed in that direction and getting them in a more productive frame of mind.
I guess you're hearing the stories and you know right off the bat if this is a couple that has these kind of explosive interactions. I'm wondering, when you have a couple like this, what are some of the things that you advise them to do? How do you help them, and how do you, what is the plan? If if they're coming to you, they don't want this anymore, how do they stop it?
Well, the good news is you don't have to have any kind of sophisticated techniques. There are really some simple things couples can learn to put in place when things get to that point. And John Gottman, the very famous marriage researcher, he calls some of these repair attempts, which is basically one partner's attempts to head things in the right direction. So there are a few of those that are very effective. One is using humor. And sometimes people are good at this and sometimes people are not good. But humor can be very effective as a way of sort of relieving the tension. And sometimes couples will do something silly, like stick out their tongue at the other one or put up their fist, and act like they're going to play fight, or say something silly or in a whiny tone just to get a laugh. So humor can be very effective if you don't take things quite so seriously and can just kind of poke fun at yourselves and say, this is ridiculous, or do something silly. So I like that one a lot. Another one is what we were talking about before with having a good old-fashioned timeout. Adults need timeout, too. It's not just for our toddlers. So sometimes requesting a timeout, if you feel yourself reaching that point of no return and you're getting very upset, to just say, hey, I need 5 minutes to go calm down, or I need 30 minutes. Can we regroup after dinner and finish this discussion? That kind of thing, as we discussed before, can be very helpful, especially for men who we know get more physiologically worked up during fights, and they actually need that time to physically calm down. Another one that I really like that I've used myself is having a code word. And again, this may seem cheesy, but it can be quite effective to just have a code word that you and your spouse have agreed on that means, I can't take this anymore. If we talk one more minute, it's going to be ugly.
Right.
It can be saying ice cube, something that means we need to cool off, or fireplace, which means it's getting too heated, or after you listen to this podcast, you can say critical mass.
Right.
And that means we're headed there. But if you agree in advance, when you're calm and quiet, that, hey, we seem to have this cycle of things escalating before we realize it, let's both agree that when we hear this word, no matter where we are in the discussion, we'll say, okay, that means we take 30 minutes, then we'll regroup. That can be a very effective tool, and it's quick and easy to use, and it just, doesn't require any explanation.
Right. So as a code word, I guess, like shut up, woman, wouldn't...
I would not recommend that one. That one might keep pushing you towards critical mass.
See, that was my effort at humor to calm things down.
There you go.
I was doing a twofer right there, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. No, those do sound like good advice. Humor, I do think it's very tricky. I think you're right. It's very challenging to be but, one of the things, I've read over and over again that people are attracted to one another because of their sense of humor. And so, he or she already thinks you're kind of funny. And if you can dig in and go, if you can just kind of step out of the moment, I guess, you have the ability to get that person to laugh. So that does sound, it's sophisticated. Right. I think it would be really hard in the middle of all that. But I think you're right. If you could pull it off, it really would sort of break the moment in a big way. It
does. I use that all the time in my therapy cases with couples and parents, and even when we're talking about very serious matters, if I can inject some humor and, sort of lighten a moment and let couples see things from a different perspective, it can really change things in a very positive direction. So it's a very, very helpful, I don't know if you'd call it a skill, but I guess it's a skill to be able to know how to use that appropriately and use it to kind of lighten the situation. Right, right.
I also find it amusing when you were talking about the time out, to just take some time away and calm down, that men need a little more time because we're physiologically so agitated. It's not. That's not. I know you're a scientist and all, but what it really is you people are better at agitating us than we are at agitating you. That's all. It's not science, right? Yeah, you can get to us under our skin. Yeah, that's it. I'm just telling you.
So all those scientists that got it down to the physiology. They're missing the point.
They are missing it.
We're sophisticated at pushing your buttons.
They need to come right here and learn from stayhappymarried.com. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. No, and I do think the idea of a code word, if you've planned it ahead of time, that really does make sense. Now, I can just imagine, my code word is, Groundhog Day or something, and I'm screaming, Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day. My wife is looking at me like, why are you screaming Groundhog Day, you idiot?
Or your kids who don't know anything about the code word. Why is Daddy using Groundhog Day?
I think he snapped, finally. Right. Yeah, and I'm assuming during the timeout, you don't suggest that we run out for a drink. That's probably a bad idea.
Probably. Whatever helps you relax. And the main thing with timeout is, I will say, it can't be abused, meaning that you call the timeout and then you never come back to resolve the issues, that it's always timeout, and then you never come back. So it is important if you're the one that calls the timeout to say, hey, let's regroup after dinner, or let's talk about it after the kids are in bed. You do have to have that piece of the puzzle to finish it, or it's just going to be frustrating for your partner if you're constantly removing yourself but never coming back to finish it.
I'm leaving. We'll talk in a month. Obviously, these are terrific ideas for sort of cooling it off, bringing it back down from critical mass down to, just percolating along and a normal discussion / maybe argument. But obviously, you're trying to help people, not have to talk themselves down from it. They'd like to not be in this place in the first place, or they wouldn't be coming to you. Do you have much luck, or I guess you don't think of it as luck, much success at helping them to get off this cycle?
Yes, definitely. Although I would say that all of us feel angry, and it's actually fine to get a little heated or to get upset during a discussion. So the key point that I do have success in helping couples is to recognize how to take that anger and be able to have it present and still be able to communicate effectively and reach a point of resolution. So, the anger part is fine. We all feel that, and that's a natural human emotion. The point that I try to help couples with is how do you tolerate that anger and have it present and still be able to engage in a discussion or even an argument, a mild argument with your spouse, and have it stay in that productive phase and not go to the ugliness.
Right. Well, on that note, let's wrap it up. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I appreciate it. Dr. Kristen Wynns, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You have a terrific website I want to tell people about. There are two, actually. One is called NoWimpyParenting.com, like NoWimpy parenting.com. Check that one out. And then there's also WynnsFamilyPsychology.com. Then you'll learn all sorts of things about Kristen's practice, the counseling services. And what I love about it is it's not just a site about her, but it's a site about you. It's got all sorts of information, resources that you can use. You can also get a hold of Kristen's office at 919-805-0182. And that's in Cary, North Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that you will join us again next week. In the meantime, gosh, we love hearing from you. Great feedback, great comments. You can reach us by calling the comment line at 919-256-3083 and leave a voicemail there, or you can email us at comments@stayhappily.married.com. I'm Lee Rosen. Until next time, stay happily married.
Thank you for joining us today on Stay Happily Married.
Happily married. Happily married.
If you'd like more information, please visit us on the web at stayhappilymarried.com. We would love to hear your feedback or comments. Please email us at comments@stayhappilymarried.com or call us at 919-256-3083. Until next time, best wishes.